For child support, there is a formula. We call it the Child Support Schedule Worksheets. And basically, and I'm going to talk in terms of mom and dad, but you might have mom and mom or dad and dad. But you look at mom's income, basically, gross monthly earnings, dad's income, gross monthly earnings. You look at any allowable deductions, like for taxes, FICA, also things like retirement plan contributions, and whether they're mandatory or voluntary. You look at things like the health insurance premium. That's an important document to have, is what coverage do your children have, like through your employer or the other parent's employer, and what's the cost breakdown for, employee plus spouse, employee plus dependents, because you would plug in that expense that becomes a credit to the parent paying it on the worksheets. It can be factored outside the worksheets, but I think regardless, important to have that document so you know what that expense is just for your children, not for the employee and the spouse, but the children. Also, if there's any work-related childcare expense, plugging that in depending on who's paying it. And that also can be considered within the worksheets or outside of the worksheets. So it can become part of the transfer payment or outside of the transfer payment. But really, in Washington, our worksheets fall down to a line item that they call the presumptive transfer payment, or the standard calculation for child support. And that becomes typically the child support that's paid each month. There are some exceptions, like discretionary downward deviations if there's a basis, such as equal residential time. Not automatic, and probably seldom the case that it's granted 100%. But some slight deviation might be warranted in that situation. Or it could be a downward deviation if, say, there's a split custody where you have two children and one child is going with mom and the other child is going with dad. And there are some other bases to deviate, but again, it's discretionary. Usually the court's looking at the standard presumptive transfer payment. And then you look at percentages. So if you have like the combined net earnings of mom and dad, what percentage of that combined net earnings does mom have and what percentage does dad have? And let's say it's 60-40. And so things like uninsured medical expenses, co-pays, deductibles, things like extracurricular activities, if there's long distance transportation, those things might get paid in that proportional share. So not necessarily 50-50, but according to the proportion each parent has of the combined net earnings. Child support can be modified. The norm is every 2 years it can be modified because people's income changes, things like that. If sooner than that, there's got to be a real substantial change in circumstances, a basis to really be eligible for a modification. So the norm is every 2 years, and sometimes people go, for years before they modify. You want to look at modification though before your child graduates from high school and enters post-secondary education, because you want to look at post-secondary educational support for your child before it's too late. What happens if payments are missed in terms of the monthly transfer payment that needs to happen is we typically recommend, if we're representing the obligee, the person receiving child support, that parent call the 1-800 number and get some help with support enforcement and collection. If we're representing the obligor, the person paying child support, we're going to want to encourage them to get caught up, because that can get really difficult. The further and further people get behind, it can follow them, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars and years from now. So it's important to stay current. And people, you can pay by Zelle or Venmo or Cash App and have a record there, or you can pay through the state and be able to, again, call that 1-800 number and get your case payment history documenting, yeah, I've timely paid, or here's what I've received and not received. So there's this gap. And it can form the basis for some people to have to file a motion for contempt. If it goes on, I would say for, months at a time, people can seek the intervention of the court, and the court can enter a judgment against the obligor for that back support obligation. So if you're the one paying, you want to avoid that. And if you're the one who's gone without, and child support is for the child, it's not for the parent. But if your child has gone without child support for many months at a time, yeah, you do have recourse. If you have any more questions about child support, contact us at clearwaterpnw.com.